Welcome back to the Creative Writing Lab. I am so excited for today's episode. We will be talking about fall, autumn, whichever you prefer to call it, and exploring it through poetry. How poets capture the lessons that are to be learned from this season, not just about the natural world, but also about the human condition. When I first moved to Iowa, I immediately became terrified when that first nip and bite began to climb into the air, when the leaves started to turn. I was not able to enjoy the beauty and wonder of fall. I wasn't able to appreciate that honeyed golden light because I was so terrified of winter. And to me, fall immediately meant the end of summer, the end of comfort. I think I'm going to share with you a poem that captures how I first felt about autumn. This is by Joan Mitchell. The rusty leaves crunch and crackle. Blue haze hangs from the dimmed sky. The fields are matted with sun-tanned stalks. Wind rushes by. The last red berries hang from the thorn tree. The last red leaves fall to the ground. Bleakness through the trees and bushes comes without a sound. So you can see there how the word choice captures the poet's discontent, the poet's negative, or the speaker's negative association with fall, much like mine initially was. Rusty leaves, rust, decay, disrepair. Blue haze hangs from the dimmed sky, dimmed, cloudy, not bright, certainly. Fields are matted. Again, matted indicates uncared for, it's not fresh. Then we have the last red berries hang from the thorn tree. That specific detail is important. Not associated with softness or comfort or coziness. A thorn tree. And finally, bleakness. That captures my feelings towards fall as they initially were. My second year in Iowa, after I weathered one hard winter, I began to become comfortable with fall. I especially began to see what people meant about how it was such a feast for the senses and how evocative it was and how emotionally resonant it was. So, here's another poem. It's called Autumnal Music. It's by LeBaron Cook. Here goes. Perhaps you do not know that in the falling of the leaves, there's music sweeter than the song of garners, ringing in their sheaves, and in the wind's sigh, a note more plaintive than the cry of gulls cleaving a silent sky. It still has that note of melancholy, but in a sweet way, sighing, crying, cleaving, falling, beauty, even if that beauty isn't exactly exuberant like summer might be. So fall is a season of so much change, so much movement, the wind, the leaves, all these colors, people rushing in and out of love. So there's a lot of place for playfulness and heightened emotions as well. Here's a poem from the 1920s that used this sort of playful, restless energy, change in the air, something brisk, something new, something potent in the air. Okay. Autumn Prophecy. The dead leaves dance like withered witches, teetering, swirling, dropping and curling, and crackling in the dried up ditches. Hear them whisper as we go past, how each dry lip rustles gossip. Do you hear them saying, our love won't last? So we have a lot of fun sounds. We have alliteration. We have the sound of the wind going. This time it's not plaintive. This time it's not melancholy. Instead, it's like a whisper. It's like gossip. It's got energy. And here's a poem. It's called And Now It's September. We are in October, but this poem is still very much applicable, as you will see in a second. All right. And now it's September, and the garden diminishes, cucumber leaves rumpled and rusty, zucchini felled by borers, tomatoes sparse on the vines. But out in the perennial beds there's one last blast of color, ignitions of goldenrod, flamboyant asters, spiraling mums, all those flashy spikes waving, in the wind conducting summer's final notes. The ornamental grasses have gone to seed, haloed. In the last light, nights grow chilly, but the days are still warm. I wear the sun like a shawl on my neck and arms. Hundreds of blackbirds ribbon in, settle in the trees. So many black leaves, then, just as suddenly, they're gone. This is autumn's great departure gate, and everyone, boarding passes in hand, waits patiently in a long line. Fall teaches us to let go. It's transformative. It eases us into winter, dazzling us with this last flash of color and beauty and ripeness and richness. Here is Ted Koozer's poem, A Letter in October. Dawn comes later and later now, and I, who only a month ago could sit with coffee every morning, watching the light walk down the hill to the edge of the pond and place a doe there, shyly drinking. Then see the light step out upon the water, sowing reflections to either side, a garden of trees that grew as if by magic. Now I see no more than my face, mirrored by darkness, pale and odd. Startled by time, while I slept, night in its thick winter jacket bridled the doe with a twist of wet leaves and led her away, and brought its black horse with harness that creaked like a cricket and turned the water garden under. I woke, and at the waiting window found the curtains open to my open face, beyond me darkness, and I, who wished to keep looking out, must now keep looking in. This is such a beautiful, powerful poem, because as the days grow shorter, you can picture it. You can picture the speaker who once could look out and absorb, observe, and really get distracted by this outside world, now is confronted only by their own image, by their own face, by themselves. So autumn offers us that. It offers us a chance to pay attention to the self, to what's happening within. Here is Mary Oliver's Song for Autumn. Don't you imagine the leaves dream now, how comfortable it will be to touch the earth instead of nothingness of the air and the endless freshets of wind. And don't you think the trees, especially those with mossy hollows, are beginning to look for the birds that will come, 6 a dozen, to sleep inside their bodies? And don't you hear the goldenrod whispering goodbye, the everlasting being crowned with the first tuffets of snow? The pond stiffens, and the white field over which the fox runs so quickly brings out its long blue shadows. The wind wags its many tails, and in the evening the piled firewood shifts a little, longing to be on its way. That's what Mary Oliver teaches us through this poem, that the end of the year, that the end of summer, that the onset of winter need not be something to mourn, but can be a celebration, a release, freedom, like all ends are eventually. I think about this poem a lot, especially since Mary Oliver died a couple of years ago. These words seem so true for her, how she lived her life, and I like to hope how she felt when she passed on as well, crossing that threshold between life and death. Finally, let's look at First Fall by Maggie Smith. This is a poem where the speaker is talking to her baby, not even a year old yet, a brand new baby about to experience fall, autumn, for the very first time. I'm your guide here. In the evening, dark morning streets, I point and name. Look, the sycamores, their mottled paint-by-number bark. Look, the leaves rusting and crisping at the edges. I walk through Schiller Park with you on my chest. Stars smolder well into daylight. Look, the pond, the ducks, the dogs paddling after their prized sticks. Fall is when the only things you know, because I've named them, begin to end. Soon, I'll have another season to offer you. Frost soft on the window and a porthole side there. Ice sleeving the bare gray branches. The first time you see something die, you won't know. It might come back. I'm desperate for you to love the world because I brought you here. Whew. So beautiful. Life, death, beauty, melancholy, freshness, celebration, color, dark, light, everything coming together in this hopeful, gorgeous poem, much like fall itself. All right, it's time for today's prompt. And as always, you are going to do this for 7 minutes. Follow the prompt as loosely or as closely as you like, but you cannot stop writing. Don't think, don't edit, don't question yourself. It doesn't matter if it's good, it just matters that you keep writing. You are going to describe something about fall that is underrated, something you appreciate about fall that you think is grossly underrated. Describe this as far as you can with all 5 senses: scent, sound, touch, taste, sight. Set your timer. I'm going to set mine too. That's our timer. Thank you so much for listening with me, for writing with me. I have read so many gorgeous fall and autumn poems in the past few days. I wish I could share them all with you, but there just wasn't enough time. Let me know, get in touch if you'd like to read more, if you'd like me to share them with you. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next week.